Hello, welcome to Sudoku.com, and today we're going to talk about some tips on how to play Sudoku for beginners. And the game of Sudoku is a game of logic, deduction, spotting opportunities, and finding patterns in the grid. And so I'm going to walk you through a few tips and bits of advice that any beginner Sudoku players might find helpful. The first thing that you want to look for when you start off playing a game of Sudoku is look at the rows, the segments of the grid that go from left to right, such as this top row has 1, 5, 4, 3, 8, 6. Look at the columns, which are the segments of the grid that go from top to bottom, such as this one here with 1, 6, 7, 2, 4. It's a column. And then also look at the squares, the self-contained sections of the grid that you can see, that have the borders, like for example this square right in the middle that contains the numbers 3, 2, and 5. Those are the three kind of elements of the Sudoku grid, and that's kind of where you want to start as far as recognizing the patterns that are there and looking for opportunities to place numbers. As you kind of start to develop, as you become a more skillful Sudoku player, you can kind of start to develop a certain sense of pattern recognition based on which numbers are already there within the rows, which numbers are already there within the columns, which numbers are already there within each square. And then you can use deductive reasoning and process of elimination thinking skills to figure out which numbers go where from there. So from a beginner's standpoint, one of the most important things you can do when you're first starting to play a game of Sudoku is to look for what I call low-hanging fruit, which is to say, look for the rows, columns, and squares that already have quite a few numbers in place. For example, this row right in the center of the grid here, you can see that there are only 2 empty spaces. All of the other numbers are already in place. 1, 2, 3, 5, 7, 8, 9. So we know that the only numbers missing are the numbers 4 and 6. Because there are only 2 spaces left. There's a 4 and a 6 missing in this row. So the 4 and the 6 have to be in these 2 spaces, and we need to figure out which one goes where. Now, the first thing to do when you're playing Sudoku is look to the adjacent rows and columns that feed in to whichever segment of the grid you're looking at. So in this case, let's look at this space right here. The cursor is blinking in it right now, and you can see it's kind of outlined in yellow. We need to find a 6 or a 4. I can see very clearly already that there's a number 6 right here in this column. So that means that the number 6 cannot also be in this space because each number can only appear once within each column. So we already know that the number 6 is elsewhere within the column. So that means 6 cannot be here. So the number 4 has to be there instead. Similarly, in this space, there are actually 2 ways we can solve this last remaining space. Both are by process of elimination. One is we can look up here in this column, and we can see the number 4 has already appeared in this column once. So this space cannot be the number 4, so it has to be the number 6. So we can place the number 6 here. And also, another way we could have placed the 6 is just by simple process of elimination by saying, that was the only number remaining in this row of 9 spaces, and so that would have been another way to do it. So very quickly, as you can see, just by looking for low-hanging fruit, looking to see which are some parts of the grid that already have most of the numbers in place, we can very quickly add a couple of numbers to the grid. So there's our first row that we filled out completely. Another tip to keep in mind, even for beginning Sudoku players, is the concept of momentum. Sudoku is a game where every single time you place a number on the grid, it tells you some additional information about the game. The game kind of changes a little bit every time you place a number. And that's one of the reasons why it's such a fun game, because it's constantly in flux, and every step you take gets you a little bit closer to solving the whole puzzle. So what you want to do when you're playing Sudoku is try and keep your momentum going. If you place a number in a certain part of the grid, you should try to keep placing numbers in that part of the grid, because you've already helped solve that part of the grid, and you might as well keep it up, right? So in this case, we just placed that number 6. That was the last number we placed, and you can see now in this square that the 6 is in the center space. This square now only has 2 more empty spaces. And the numbers that we're looking for, the numbers that are that are already in place in the square are 1, 2, 4, 5, 6, 8, and 9. So the only 2 numbers left to place are 3 and 7. And we can kind of look around a little bit to see if there's a 3 or a 7 in any of these adjacent columns or rows that could give us a clue as to which number has to go in those spots. And unfortunately, right now, we don't have any additional clues. There's if there was a 3 or a 7 in this column that I'm clicking on right now, if there was a 3 or a 7 here, we would be able to rule out that space, and we could make a placement. But we don't have that, we don't have that extra knowledge to be able to make that decision. That's the thing with Sudoku, that a mistake that a lot of beginning Sudoku players make is they might be tempted to guess and just say, oh, well, there's only 2 spaces left in this square, so I'm going to guess that maybe the 3 goes here and the 7 goes there. Well, that's not a smart move, because technically, in a game of Sudoku, you shouldn't have to guess. You should be able to gradually, by process of deductive reasoning and process of elimination, you should be able to rule out every single space on the board, in time, and figure out which are the correct numbers that are supposed to go in each place without having to guess. So the point is, we don't currently have enough information to finish this square right here. So let's look elsewhere and see what else we figured out. We placed that number 4 in that within this center square. And that number 4 has also been placed within this vertical column. So let's take a look at this vertical column and see what we can find out, because there are only 1, 2, 3 blank spaces left in this vertical column. We see number 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, and 8. So we know that the only missing numbers are 1, 7, and 9. And let's see if we can figure something out. I see a 1 over here. You see that number 1 right here in this row. So this space cannot be a number 1. But that's all we know about that space. We don't see, there's no 9 or 7 that we can rule out. So that space could contain the 7 or the 9. This space we don't have any information about, because I don't see a 1 or a 7 or a 9 in any of the adjacent rows or columns. And then this space, we can see there's a 7 right here in this row. So this space cannot contain a 7, but we still don't have quite enough information to make a final determination as to which numbers go where. So that's another example of this column. Even though we got a bit of additional information about it by placing the 4, we still don't have enough information to fill in the rest of these spots. So our momentum so far seems to have burned out a little bit. We don't really have the ability to keep placing numbers yet in these general areas of the board. So instead, let's shift our attention to a different part of the grid. And that's another concept for beginning Sudoku players to keep in mind. If your momentum won't keep going in the part of the grid that you've been looking at, don't be afraid to scan around a little bit. Shift your attention, shift your focus to a different part of the grid and see what you can find. Let's look at the top row, where you can see that there are only 3 blank spaces in this top row. The numbers that have already been placed are 1, 3, 4, 5, 6, and 8. So we know that the only numbers remaining to be placed in this top row are 2, 7, and 9. So let's look for some 2s or 7s or 9s in these vertical columns and the squares as well that feed into this top row. I already see a number 9 right here within this square. See that number 9 in that lower right corner of this top right square? So that means that these two spaces here cannot contain the number 9 because it's within the same square as the two spaces. So that means that this space over here toward the left must contain the number 9. And now we need a 2 and a 7. Let's focus on these last two blank spaces. There's a 2 down below within this column, so that means that the 2 cannot be there. So the 2 has to be there, and that leaves us with 7 right there. So all of a sudden we filled out the top row. Let's see if we can keep our momentum going in this upper right square. We have a 1, 2, 4, 5, 6, 7, 9. So we're missing a 3 and an 8 at this point in this upper right square. And just by taking a quick look around, I don't see a 3 or an 8 in any of the adjacent rows or columns that affect these two blank spaces. So we're going to have to look around, look to another part of the board, another part of the grid instead. This upper right square is not yet able to be completed. Let's take a look at this left center square. There's only 3 blank spaces here. We're missing a 1, 5, a 1, 3, and a 5. And I can see there's a 1 in this leftmost column. See that 1 in the top left space? That affects these two blank spaces. So the 1 cannot be there. So that means the 1 has to go there. And now we need a 3 and a 5 to fill out these last two blank spaces. And you can see right here in this row, there's a 5 right there. So that can't be the 5. The 5's got to be right there. That leaves us with the 3. So all of a sudden we filled out this left center square. It's all complete with all 9 numbers. Let's see what this momentum can do to carry us forward. We filled out a couple of blank spaces here, so that affects this leftmost column. There's only 2 blank spaces left in this column. We've got a 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. So 8 and 9 are the last 2 numbers to be placed in these 2 blank spaces. And look, we have a 9 right here. So that means the 9 can't go there. It's got to be the 8. The 9 goes down below. And you can see that opens up some additional possibilities on this upper part of the board. Upper part of the grid. In this upper left square, we have a 1, 2, 5, 6, 8, 9. So that means we still need a 3, 4, and 7. I can see 2 4s in adjacent rows and columns. So that means the 4 cannot be here. The 4 cannot be here, so the 4 has to be right there. And then we still need to find a 3 and a 7. I see a 7 right here. So that means the 7 cannot go in this blank space because there's already a 7 in that column, so the 7 has to go down below. That leaves us with the 3. Remember this upper right square from a little earlier? There were only 2 blank spaces, but we couldn't figure out which was which because we needed more information so we could figure out where the 3 and the 8 were supposed to go. Well, look what we have now. In the upper left square, we have a 3 and an 8. So the 3 can't go there. That's got to be an 8. And then the 3 has to go right there. So you can see how the whole game starts to open up. The whole puzzle starts to open up a little bit further with every single number you place. And this is part of the fun of playing Sudoku, is because you kind of get this addictive brain rush of of having the satisfaction of filling out more and more spaces, and every single successful number placement brings you a little bit closer to solving the entire thing. Let's see if we've learned anything more about the right side of the grid. This right center square has 2 blank spaces. We're missing a 3 and a 7. And look, we've recently placed a 3 over here, so that space cannot contain the 3. The 3 has to go there. 7 has to go there. Let's see what else we can do at this point. We've got a row right here with 3, 4, 2 from left to right. 3, 4, 2, 5, 9, 8, 7. So that means there's a missing number 1 and a missing number 6. And I'm looking around. I cannot seem to place anything in these two spaces. So we're gonna have to keep looking. Why don't we look at this this lower right square? There are 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 blank spaces, and we're missing numbers 3, 4, 5, 6, 8. So let's see what we've got. We're missing the number 4. I see a couple of 4s here in this row and this row. So this space, and that space cannot contain the number 4. And look, there's another 4 right here, so that rules out that square as well. So all of a sudden, these 4 squares cannot contain number 4, so we know it has to go there. Now we need 3, 5, 6, and 8. I see an 8 right here in this column, so none of these 3 spaces can contain the 8, so the 8 has to go here. We know that now. Now we need a 3, 5, and 6. I see a 5 and a 6 in this top row. See that 5 and 6? So this might be a little bit tricky for beginner Sudoku players, but this is kind of a technique that you might want to keep an eye on. Is sometimes you can rule out multiple numbers at once in a single space, and that will tell you which number has to go there. So for example, in this lower right square, there are only 3 spaces left, so there are 3 numbers still to be placed, right? We already can rule out 2 of those numbers for this square, for this upper right space. 5 and 6 cannot go here, cannot go in this yellow square, so that means number 3 can. See how that works? So sometimes you can rule out more than one number at a time, just based on the information that's already presented to you. So you don't, a lot of beginning Sudoku players will try to eliminate a single number and a single space, which is totally fine, and that's a good way to get started with the game. But if you can see the opportunities, like that one there are opportunities where sometimes you can rule out more than one number at a time, and sometimes that will help speed up your efficiency in solving the puzzle. So those are a few basic techniques for how to play Sudoku. You can see just by the advice for beginners, it's kind of two-pronged advice, right? On the one hand, you want to keep your momentum going. You want to try to keep pursuing the line of attack every single time you're able to place a number. Try to see what you can learn about the situation around that number that you just placed. But then at the same time, you also have to be kind of nimble and adaptable and flexible and be able to scan around the grid, constantly seeking new opportunities as well. So that's one of the reasons that Sudoku's so much fun, is like you kind of get you get the satisfaction of being able to focus in on a particular part of the puzzle, but then you also kind of get the constant sense of variety of looking for new opportunities and new parts of the grid that maybe you hadn't considered before. So that's kind of a very basic, quick overview how to play Sudoku for beginners, and I hope these tips are helpful to you as you start to solve Sudoku puzzles yourself. Thank you very much for listening.